Hey everyone, welcome back. We're taking a quick look at Detron today. To many of you, Detron was once a crown jewel, one of the best status shredders before the status rework, and top tier disposition. Today it seems to be a shadow of its former self. Being unable to hit 100% status, what can it do now? Most see it as a worse Sobek at this point, with worse HP percent scaling on Thermagnetic Shells, and worse range than Acid Shells. Detron is also semi-auto instead of Sobek's full auto. That said, it does have a place and can still function. I've got two setups to show you today revolving around this weapon for Steel Path, and with the highlight actually being the second one, so stay tuned until then. I've covered full strip builds before. There are so many frames that can make good use of this that I just can't include them all. That said, this is why I try to include different frames in each video. This time we will be starting with Frost. He can strip all the armor at 250% strength, which is why we're running 229 plus growing power. With the status ban from Detron, growing power is pretty much permanently active. My goal was to run enough strength in the least slots possible and also stack range. For that reason, I included overextended and compensated with Umbral Intensify. If you want to fit Rolling Guard on the build, there are a few choices you need to make. Either you drop Natural Talent or you replace Overextended with Just Stretch, letting you drop Transient Fortitude. The higher radius is super helpful, but Natural Talent also cuts down on his 4's cast time significantly, so you will have to choose. Our helmet of choice is Ensnare for even better CC, since we don't need more damage. You should be pretty safe with all of these forms of hard CC. His Globe, his 4, and Ensnare. In a team setup, you probably won't even need Rolling Guard, but solo may be a different story. Enemies are only stripped for the duration of his 4, but we don't need that much duration because it already lasts a base 8 seconds. You can fiddle with the rank 4 fleeting or streamline instead if you so choose. This build has a mandatory energize due to the costs and arcane precision to make the setup faster. Essentially, we're grouping enemies together and armor stripping them in either order and then blowing them all up with Detron. Our Detron build looks like this today. We're essentially modding it to stack viral and electric status. This is important for grouping since they are already CC'd. The sheer amount of incoming damage and massive electric spread will easily chain all the enemies multiple times over for easy damage. The primed expel lets us double dip electric proc scaling. Seeker is super important to make sure you can keep hitting your initial target no matter what gets in the way and to trigger Thermagnetic Shells as soon as possible. Finally, the viral procs will set up a boosted Thermagnetic Shell explosion. Not only will the first explosion most likely kill them, but even if it's fodder that set it off, just like Sobek, enemies killed by the Therma explosion are eligible for proccing more percent HP based explosions. Truly a fireworks display. I'm aware that Frost already has a Yeet bubble build, but hey, this is a video about making Detron relevant again, right? To better spread our viral procs, we have two options. Either we run Zorus with the reverse primer setup I previously showed in the Sobek video, where we abuse the 8 meter radius AoE and volatile rebound for 4 big status hits alongside infinite combo with weeping wounds to spread massive amounts of viral in the crowd, or we run Panzer Valpaphyla with viral quills. The choice is yours. The Panzer, in my opinion, is the better choice as it means one less weapon to worry about in your rotation. It can also save you from dying and continues to apply viral even after its first form dies. So let's see it in action. First, we cast Ensnare, then we strip them and throw our Zorus, or if you have Panzer you can skip the priming, then we shoot the head of one. Simple as that, and you even set up precision for the future groups. Was that too fast? Alright, here, let's take a look at it one more time. We Ensnare, strip, and prime, and shoot the head. As you scale higher and higher, they will stop dying to a single shot, and this is where the electric procs from Detron will help you kill that first enemy. As soon as that happens, it's poof. So for our second frame today, I want us all to take a look at Zephyr. Detron seems almost tailor-made for her at this point. A build that doesn't armor strip or need a primer. It also saves weapon mod slots. Let's take a look. As you can see, I slapped on the Combat Discipline and Arcane Avenger setup once again on her. This is pretty important to increase our damage output. We don't have any big breakpoints to reach, so we can run this instead of growing power. I opted for a rank 4 overextended so that we can stay above 100% strength because our helmet this time is Fire Blast for the 75% armor strip and CC. Again, this is a heavy CC build with Fire Blast, Air Burst, and Tornadoes. The high range allows us to suck in and CC as many enemies as possible with Air Burst to maintain a higher kills per second. This build is much more lenient on energy than the Frost setup, so much that we can actually skip flow and run purely on energize since we're at 160 efficiency. Take note this is a vanilla Zephyr, not her prime, which has an even higher energy reserves. Fire Blast is entirely optional on this build, she can still kill without it, but it does come in handy for endless runs or tankier enemies. Tornado will inherit the statuses of our Detron and evenly redistribute the extra hits on all of them even after we've already shot through them with punch through. This will basically instantly max out our viral stacks and spread electric within the tight-knit crowd. Proccing Arcane Avenger will also boost our crits, funneling our AoE damage further since Tornado multiplies all redistributed crit damage by 2, just like Volt Shields. Some positive duration is nice since we are actually running the Airburst rounds Augment. For a full explanation review on how this Augment works, because it's a bit wonky, check the link above. Not only does this serve as a grouping CC, but it also buffs Detron significantly, completely replacing both Arcane Precision and Hornet Strike. This is how we're able to fit on Arcane Avenger and actually frees up a slot on our weapon, so let's take a look at that. This build is very similar to the Frost Detron, with one key difference. We aren't running Hornet Strike because we have Airburst rounds. This frees up the slot and gives us two choices. We can either run Prime Target Cracker, which is shown here and is worth a 67% overall damage increase, or Lethal Torrent for the higher fire rate and multi-shot for quality of life. This is worth about a 103% overall damage per second increase. That said, your per bullet damage falls off, meaning you may reach a point where you will have to reload sooner than expected before being able to set off the detonation. I don't expect this to happen outside of Steel Path Endurance though, so don't worry about it too much. The rest of the build remains the same with Viral and Electric for spreading damage. Punch Through, as I said, is even more important in this build because it means every shot also goes into the Tornado and gets redistributed and reapplied again. The Bane also lets the Tornado double dip on Electric procs. Finally, the Tornado itself will apply another instance of Thermagnetic Shell explosion damage each time something detonates, so if one enemy dies and explodes in the 6 meter radius, the Tornado will reapply that damage to everything in a 10 meter radius. The Tornado essentially doubles the damage output from Thermagnetic Shells and even has a larger radius, closing in on Sobek's Acid Shells, guaranteeing everything will die once the chain reaction starts. So let's take a look at this setup in action, shall we? We'll have our Airburst rounds casted throughout the mission. Hitting any enemy will refresh the timer to full, it always preserves the highest value. When you see enemies, you can optionally cast Airburst to clump as many together as possible, since it has a larger suck radius than Tornado. You may now also optionally cast Fire Blast, since it is line of sight, you're more likely to hit the enemies with it after you cast Airburst. Otherwise, cast your Tornado by holding down 4 to make sure they stay where you aim, and then shoot your Detron into it. You can fuel more enemies into the Tornado with more Airburst casts over time, letting you repurpose the inherited Viral and Electric procs it carries. You can even just shoot the Tornado instead of the enemies, as it will redistribute all the damage in an AoE. That said, you are still missing the punch through damage of hitting enemies first before passing to the Tornado if you do this, which may be important later on in endurance runs. But what's nice about this setup is the super quick CC of Airburst and medium cast length of Tornado and Fire Blast lets it function both as a campy or on the fly playstyle. It does favor camping somewhat and falls behind in exterminations versus portable nuke setups though. Frost, on the other hand, has no persistence on his 4 and, well, works equally well in both mission types. I hope I've managed to bring Detron back into the light as a rather formidable weapon. Although it can't proc slash like Sobek, it is capable of enormous amounts of damage through electric DOTs with clumping CC. In the right hands with Armor Strip, it matches its peers. It also gives a basically infinite scaling alternative on the Zephyr setup where Airburst round synergizes with it extremely well and allows you to basically take a 9th weapon mod slot by dropping Hornet Strike and multiplying a ton of the Thermagnetic Shell damage. Now you may think I only covered this to finish off the Rathoom weapons with the percent HP scaling mods, but actually that's not the case. If you remember the Sisters of Parvos showcase, there was a GRANUM DETRON placeholder that was revealed. A more crit focused Detron that also had slightly better overall status from increased pellet counts and slightly lower base status. It will be able to take advantage of Arcane Avenger and Prime Target Cracker much better. I can't wait to play with it once it drops, and I expect Thermagnetic Shells to work on it too, so stay tuned for that. Until then, feel free to play with these builds and let me know how it goes. If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always as soon as possible, like I've done with covering the Tempest story. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. I'm also preparing to get you the info first once the Sisters of Parvos mainline drops. Don't want to miss out on day 1 Ureli content, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching and see you all next time.